Good morning. This is Deb Owen and
Lupe here.
For another episode of Deb Talks. And today I'm kind of really excited. Well, when am I not excited about talking?
No, this is exciting though.
This
This
is.
is exciting. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going to visit about the difference between a manufactured home,
Mhm.
what that looks like in the lending world.
Yep.
There's a lot of myths and there's a lot of facts out there, so we're hopefully going to put those to rest.
Yep.
Versus a mobile home.
Yep, because there is a difference.
There is a difference,
Manufactured home, mobile home, difference.
right?
Mhm.
And anyhow, those are. I know there was one more that I was going to touch base on, but we'll get going through that.
Yes.
And I'll go, oh, dang.
Yeah. There's a lot to cover.
So yeah, I
There-
probably shouldn't be doing these live because now I can't remember what I was going to say. But anyhow,
That's why I'm here.
yeah, that's why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. So, manufactured homes.
Mhm.
So by definition, and a lot of people worry about lending on a manufactured home. The truth of the matter is, if it's a manufactured home, okay, so by definition, for it to be lendable, it has to be 1976
Mhm.
or newer.
Mhm.
On a mortgage, so there's different ways we can look at financing these. On a mortgage, that manufactured home has to be what is called declared real property.
Mhm.
And what does that mean?
Yep. How do you define real property?
Right.
And make it real property.
So what that means is the home has been put on its permanent location on land that is owned or will be owned by whomever is going to be purchasing that.
Mhm.
It is put in with county codes. The wheels are so on a manufactured home or a mobile home, the home comes in on wheels. Right, whether it's two parts, a single wide, double wide, or triple wide.
Yes.
All pieces of that come in on a wheel.
Mhm.
And so those wheels are removed and then put on the permanent foundation.
Mhm.
The tie downs, that's underneath the home. There has to be a certain amount of tie downs per county code. There has to be what we call the marriage line, the seam that goes down that to put the parts together so that they're resting correctly together.
Mhm.
So that, and then the county comes in and there's some, depending on what county, they're pretty much all done the same way.
Mhm.
And an engineer has to certify that that is set down correctly and all the tie downs are correctly. The slopage away from the home is correct.
Right.
And at that point, then the actual title is removed.
Mhm. Yep.
Because in order to be brought into the place, that's why the homes are on wheels, they actually have to go down the road, right?
Mhm.
And so to do that, there has to be a title to it, just like your car title.
Yeah, because at that point it's movable.
Right,
It's moving, so you have to have the title.
right.
Mhm.
And so to make it lendable from mortgage standpoint, that title has to be removed.
Mhm.
And then the county, once that title's removed, all those things are done, the county will call that real property. And that's what makes it, by definition, in order for us to lend on standard financing. And what kind of standard financing available?
Yeah, we could do the standard financing available is like our conventional loans. We're talking about FHA loans, conventional VA, and USDA loans.
On the USDA loan, they have to be brand new by certain dealerships.
Correct.
So
everything has its own little thing.
Work,
Mhm.
right.
Yes.
But if they meet those requirements, there's another additional requirement we're going to talk about.
Mhm.
But if they meet those types of requirements, then they can be financed with as little as 5% down on a conventional loan,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
They can be financed as little as 3.5% down on an FHA loan.
Mhm.
On a VA loan, typical 0% down, still the same.
Still the same.
And then if it does meet the requirement of that rural development loan or that USDA loan, that's a 0% down loan.
Correct.
The caveat, not only the year, so we talked about the year has to be 76 or newer.
Right.
But to also go into those type of lending for that type of a home,
Mhm.
it also cannot have more than what we call a one-time sit-down. Okay, so we have to document that it went straight from either the dealership lot, if it was a showcase model,
Mhm.
or the factory that was built in, straight to the current place that it's at.
Yes.
And I don't care if it was a 1980 something or a 1976, because it has to be June 76 or newer.
Correct.
We still have to go back that far as mortgage lenders to validate that it's only had that one-time sit-down.
Yes. Yeah.
Not to throw kinks here, but VA is the only one that doesn't care.
Yeah.
And when you're doing normal mortgage financing,
Correct.
okay?
Mhm.
So sometimes that's harder to do,
Yes.
especially
Across things like that.
especially in an older one.
Mhm.
And the reason they have to be 76 or newer, because that's when HUD actually changed how they built what the 2x4s and the different things that actually go into the home. That's when HUD came out and said, in order for this to actually be a home,
Mhm.
there has to be higher requirements than what they were seeing before 76.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So that is why it's important that the year has to be noted.
Mhm.
And also to lend, and this is one thing that happens a lot, also to lend on those, each piece of the home, if it's a double wide,
Mhm.
I hate saying that, but if that came in two pieces,
Yes.
if it's a triple wide, it came in three pieces. Each piece of that will have what they call the HUD tag on it.
Mhm.
And appraisers and lenders have to see that HUD tag. So because that tells us a lot of information on that home when it was built. It actually tells us exactly what zoning it was built in. It tells us different things about that home. So it's important. We see a lot of times when people remodel those homes, they might put siding over it, or they don't realize it and they've taken that HUD tag off,
Yes. Or they paint over it.
or they paint over
Paint
it,
over it as well. Yeah.
right?
So then we are on the hunt to find out.
Right. And the good news is there is a website now that is ran by the government that does have, and they've got all of those in there now. For a long time, those weren't all in there if they were older ones, but
Yeah.
now if that isn't accessible, then the seller of the home can actually go into that website and pay to have that HUD certificate given to the lender so they have it. And it is an additional cost,
Yes.
but it has to be done if you're doing normal mortgage financing.
Correct. Yes. And we
you're
do a
paid to
really
know.
good job of helping people
Oh,
walk
yeah.
through this whole process. So if we're giving you a lot of information, it may seem a little overwhelming, but we do help from the start to finish in regards to all the documentation and making sure that this is a type of home that can go through
Go
this type of
one of
financing.
those,
Correct.
one
these
of those normal, not normal, but one of those kind of programs.
Correct.
I will say normal because when we start talking about chattel and mobile homes, those are a specialty home or product.
Specialty
So
product.
with the specialty products comes a little bit higher of an interest rate and or fees to get involved in those.
Yes.
So the ideal way to lend on those would be a standard mortgage. That's ideally, that's not necessarily always the case, and that's okay.
Correct.
Because honestly, it's your home.
Mhm.
I don't care what kind of home it is. It's your home. It belongs to you. So we want to always do what's best for you anyways on that aspect of it.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and there is, so as, you know, when we have somebody that comes, we explain to them that this is looked at as a home. This is a home.
Absolutely,
Because
yeah.
that's why we can use the normal, as we, say the normal type of financing for them, because it is considered a home, and an appraisal is done on these homes. So,
Right.
we know that we're meeting value, just like just as if it was a stick-built home,
Right.
right?
The engineer certification, that's an additional thing that is done on
That's
that
true.
versus a stick-built home,
Yes.
okay? I remember what I was thinking.
Okay.
I remember what I was thinking. There are modular homes
Oh, true.
that are also sold at manufactured home dealerships.
Mhm.
Those modular homes actually fit the same lending parameters as a normal stick-built home.
Mhm.
So a difference on a modular versus a manufactured is, like I talked about, a manufactured comes in on wheels.
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So there's a chassis under there.
Yes.
That's there's wheels in the chassis under there under
Mhm.
that home as it goes down the freeway.
Right.
And so that's why the definition of a manufactured home. Modular homes are still built at a lot of times these same dealerships,
Mhm.
but they're built, erected in the factory, then torn back down, laid down
Mhm.
on what is going to take them across. So there's not a chassis and wheels
Yep.
under that home.
Mhm.
So by definition, for lending purposes, that's a stick-built home.
Correct.
So we don't have to worry about following those extra parameters that a manufactured home would require.
Right. Mhm.
One thing we do look for when we're lending on standard lending is on a manufactured home, has there been additions to the home?
Oh, yeah, that's true, because that comes up quite a bit.
Right.
And
You might even want to add a garage.
yeah.
That's okay,
Mhm.
but we have to make sure if there's additions, extra porches, anything that you added to that, the proper permitting is done.
Uh-huh.
And the reason is because we have to make sure that the weighting is correct on those homes.
Yes.
So if you add a garage, we just have to double check to make sure, the weighting is on the addition and not tied into that initial frame of that home, which would hold the difference on the weight load, how that home was built.
Yes, because it can cause a issue to the infrastructure
Correct.
if it's not weighted correctly. And
Correct.
so we just have to make sure that, and it's for your protection. It's to protect.
is.
It's to protect your investment,
It is.
right? So
Right.
we will always address that as well.
Right.
Mhm.
And before we go to mobile homes, on a manufactured home, again, I've lost my train of thought. I can't even remember.
Yeah, no, so, well, there's a lot to cover.
There's
So we
so
were
much
talking
to
about the
cover.
modular home. So again, we don't have the issues with the modular home as if we would with the manufactured home. We don't have to worry about the HUD tags. We don't have
Right.
to worry about the year on those. So it's different parameters. And again, those also fall under the normal parameters of the financing,
Right.
minus the extra steps of the
Right.
HUD tag.
A
whatnot.
lot of times too, what we find is a lot of people is like, how do we prove
Yes, that's true. That comes up
that
quite a
it's,
bit.
especially on those older ones.
Yeah.
How do we prove that home has only had a one-time sit down?
Yes, comes up quite a bit.
A lot of times we'll say, go to the county records, find out when the permit to actually put that home out there was pulled. A lot of times we can look at that and we can determine that, yes, it obviously went from here to here because the year and make of the home match up when the permits were done.
Yes.
That doesn't always happen.
Right. And yeah, because we have found quite a bit that even the home had not been declared real property
Correct.
at the time.
Right.
So that may be an extra step that will need to be rectified before we can close on it.
Right. So one thing I will say this, not every lender will agree to do this, but I know, and I don't want to, but at Guild we do.
Yes.
If the engineer, we will ask the engineer that's doing the foundation inspection and proving that actual underneath of the home was set up correctly
Mhm.
to current code. Okay,
Yeah.
so the codes can change and we have to make sure it's set to current code also.
And if it's not set to current code,
It has to be brought up to current code.
yes.
Right,
Mhm. That's why that engineer certification is really important to have done
right,
before closing.
right.
Mhm.
Because several years ago, we didn't need as many of the pillars underneath for the
Yes.
bearing of the floor, the
Yeah.
weighting of the floor. Come to find out, there needs to be some
Mhm.
additional. So
Yes.
that's typically what we see. If it wasn't set up to current code, that's most of the time what we see.
And then sometimes I think I've run into one where even the tires hadn't been removed.
Oh, yeah,
I think
Correct.
you run into something like that
Correct.
as well. Yeah.
yes. And those obviously needed to be removed.
Yes.
So, but a lot of times the engineer can tell us
Yeah.
if that home has had a one-time sit down or not. So we do have the ability to look at it that way. Now, if the engineer cannot determine that,
Mhm.
and that's very rare that the engineer can't determine it because he knows what signs he's looking for, even if they're older signs,
Yes.
that is like, oh, no, we can clearly see that home was the chassis was removed
Mhm.
and set exactly there.
Correct.
There's signs underneath the house that engineer can look at.
Yes.
So a lot of times, if we can't get something by county record or something like that,
Mhm.
then we will, it cost additional money, so we try not to do that. So anything we have to do might cost additional money.
Yeah.
But that is a source that we have that will allow us to determine if it's a one-time sit down or not.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what happens if it's not a one-time sit down?
Then
Then what do we got?
we don't have the type of loan that. we
The
can-
home.
The home.
That can go standard financing.
Correct.
And that is one thing that changes it into that specialized financing category,
Mhm.
which we do.
Yes,
Okay.
we do. We
So
have that
there's-
specialty product.
Yes. So, if the home doesn't have a one-time sit down, that's gonna put that, or if the home is a mobile home.
Yep. A mobile home that has not been set on foundation,
Right,
that still has maybe the wheels on it.
correct.
Yes.
That's exactly what,
That's a mobile home.
yes.
And it can be a single wide or again, double wide as,
And most
specified.
people think of a mobile home that's sitting in a park, you rent, so that's one thing that will tell us right away. If you are paying park rent or land rent on top of that is a mobile home
Yes.
because it hasn't been declared real property.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes we can convert them, but sometimes you can't.
Right.
And if you can't, and if it's in a park, or if it's had more than a one-time sit down,
Yeah.
we've got to do that specialty financing.
Yep.
So, and by that, then you don't have the option to do an FHA. You don't have the option to do a VA on mobile homes. You do if it's more than one time sit down, but you do have that specialty financing, and that really is the down payment requirement and the interest rate on those are going to depend on really where that credit score, that's a big one, and the
Yeah.
credit, then you're into a specialty program, so you're not just looking at credit scores and stuff, you're looking at a whole lot of other things, but
Yes.
you can come in with as little as 5% down.
Yeah. Mhm.
You can.
Some people think that they have to have a ton of money for these.
Right,
But
But
as
you
little as
don't.
5%, you don't.
right.
Yeah. And that may be an option for
That is,
a lot of
it
people
is
right
a
now.
good option
Mhm.
because honestly, when you're looking at a mobile home versus something with land home,
Mhm.
you might be 100,000 or 150,000 less than what you can find anyplace else.
Yeah.
And so that's a great option for your home.
Yeah.
And so by being in a park or being moved before doesn't make them unlendable. It just puts them in a special category of lending. Still doable. Homes
They're
still have to be 76 or newer,
correct.
even for the specialty
Yes,
financing.
that is one of the things, does
Yeah.
have to be because of the way that they're built
Right.
from that point on.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
So really, honestly, that's by definition. I don't know how to do it. Explain it. It's pretty simple and pretty cut and dry on we call them chattel. Okay. And there's a reason they're called chattel, but a mobile home versus a manufactured home
yes,
versus even those modular homes that we were talking about.
correct.
Yeah.
And those, as Debbie said, in regards to those depend more on, yes, the year of the home, the credit score. You do have to come in with your 5%, but that 5% can be, not going too much into it, but it can be a gift.
Right.
It can be a gift for, if you don't have it yourself, it can be a gift
Yes.
from.
To get into that.
Yes, to get into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I will just touch base real quickly on the interest rates difference.
Yes.
I'm not going to quote rates,
Mhm.
but I can absolutely tell you that on a standard mortgage, you're probably going to be at least 3 points higher on a specialized product, your chattel loan, than you are on a standard mortgage. That's pretty much where we're seeing an average. Could be a little less, it could be a little more, depending on what your down and your credit scores are.
Mhm.
But if the going rate on and I am not quoting a rate here,
No.
okay, but
Yeah.
if a going rate today is 7% on a standard mortgage, then you're at least, well, actually, you're probably 4 points higher on a chattel loan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, not even 3. You're going to be about 4 points
points
higher on a chattel loan. But again, your loan amounts are smaller on those anyways. So,
Yep.
And there's no private mortgage insurance on a chattel loan,
That is correct.
even with 5% down.
Yeah. No private mortgage.
The only thing we do is your principal and interest, your
Mhm.
property taxes, and your home insurance, because they still have to be insured. And you're just going to have, I say property taxes, there's going to be home tax
Yes, a home tax.
on even a home that's in a rented park.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
they're good loans. They're great.
Yeah, they
They're
really are.
great loans. It gets you into a home. It's still your home. Doesn't matter how you else you look at it.
Yeah, it's,
So
and we do those for, max years are 30 years.
on the chattel,
On the chattel.
most of the time they're to 25-year. Max year is most of the time a 25-year.
25, okay, correct,
Correct.
25, okay.
Correct.
See?
20 to 25 years for
Okay.
those.
Yeah, so it's not bad.
No.
Not bad at all. You have plenty of time to get into it, have that time, and no prepayment penalties.
Correct.
So that's even a good thing as well.
So hopefully that gave you a little bit of direction on the difference between a manufactured home and what we look for there versus a mobile home and what we look for there. Both of them are lendable. Both of them, well, we do.
We do, yeah,
And we love them
yeah.
because it's still your home.
Mhm.
So let us know if you have any questions.